good morning and good afternoon in England. Good morning in Canada. We're pleased to have yet another show, and we thought we needed more women on this What Now program. So we're very pleased to have Saeeda joining us from Northern England, and with Anika and I. It's April 14th, Tuesday, still in the midst of the coronavirus, whatever that is. And we are exploring new possibilities and new narratives. So thank you, Saeeda, for joining us and for what I think will be yet another inspiring conversation.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome, Saeeda. Salam Alaikum. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Anika.
So how do I introduce you? You are the Muslim powerhouse, Muslim woman powerhouse. So I don't know how to introduce you because you wear so many hats. You're into education, you sit in so many boards, and you represent the Islamic finance and economics as well. So if we start maybe with how do you maybe introduce our listeners or viewers, what is a halal economy? Because this is like a new concept for many. Thank you.
Especially me. What is halal in the first place? Yeah.
Yes. So I think halal means permissible or allowed. And it's often associated with food, meaning something is halal or allowed, so misunderstood as having, say, no alcohol or not having pork in the diet, etc. But actually it's much more than that. It's an ecosystem, and it's only as I became an adult and I stopped understanding my faith in a two-dimensional point of view and started understanding the intricacies of it, that I realized that our faith as Muslims is about being ethical consumers. It's about being socially motivated. It's about being environmentally conscious. So there's your responsibility to God or Allah, and then there's your responsibility to the whole of creation. And that would mean that everything is an inbuilt system where your responsibility to creation means animals, it means other fellow human beings, it means plants, it means insects, anything and everything, even down to your suppliers. So our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that you must pay the worker and before the sweat on their back has dried, meaning that you can't withhold the rights of people who are working for you. And I think that I started taking more of an interest in this coming from a secular viewpoint. I'm sorry, I've just got a cat that's deciding that it wants to jump on my lap at the same time. To balance. So if you see any funny maneuvers, you've got a lovely little cat that wants to say hello to you.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. So it came from a point of view that I was involved in social enterprise, the ethical economy, not from a religious point of view, but more from a point of view that it was the right thing to have. And the halal economy actually surpasses even that, because it doesn't limit itself like fair trade does just to the producers. It's about an end-to-end responsibility that we have to one another. And the first responsibility is that we are accountable to God or Allah to do the right thing, and then the rest is about how we then do it. So this economy is about making profit, but not being scared of making profit, but being fair along the way and making sure that through that profit and whatever we do in business, we distribute it in a way so that we distribute it amongst those that are vulnerable, those that need it. The workers are paid fairly and on time. You're not lying to your customers. What you have, what you eat, what you live on is ethical, it's clean. The food that you eat, it's I'm laughing because the cat's now wanting more attention. I think it wants to be sat in the seat talking to Anika more than myself. So it's about
it's halal.
It's halal. Yeah.
Your cat is halal.
Yeah. So actually it's really misunderstood, because people think, oh well, it's about food and you're not allowed to have blood and you're not allowed to have alcohol, and actually you're not allowed to have anything that harms you. So you eat in balance. You eat the things that are nutritious, that are wholesome, that don't harm your body. So if you look at in a broader sense, it's about ultimately looking after who you are, and the quality of your life. You're not encouraged to overwork. You're supposed to do everything in balance. You're encouraged to pray, to reflect, to be thankful for what you have, and also to give, because everything we have isn't just about us. There's people that need help, and it's built within the system. So the halal economy is about ensuring that everybody in that ecosystem is looked after, and greed and power doesn't give one group more favor than others. I mean, I'm trying to kind of explain the sort of philosophical context to it.
Thank you. I get you. So how big, my next question would be then, how big is this halal economy, and why also maybe label it halal economy? Because isn't that then segregational, that within living, say, for example, living in a secular society, when we sort of label it halal economy, is that creating a segregation as well? Is it just for the Muslim community? I'm just asking for our viewers to understand this more.
It's actually a very important question, because I think that there's so many different narratives and discussions around this. One of the things is that some people say, well, we shouldn't call it halal, it's just ethical. And it's an ecosystem of, for example, environmental responsibility, social responsibility, fair trade, all of those things in one. So some have got that you know what, if it's all of that, it's halal. Others look at it from a political point of view and saying, well, actually, if there's something that is your identity and it's something to be proud of, wouldn't you want to use that as a way to actually show people that, you know what, this is actually a really good thing? I think that the complications occur where in the Far East, people see it as a quality mark. So in the Far East, they've got halal certified, for example, that will not certify products that are genetically modified or toxic or harmful for you. Sorry, my cat's just jumped over the... I'm sorry, this is just becoming a comedy show. It's trying to get... So then you've got then you've got other people that in the West see it as a political stance, and they feel quite threatened by it, that it's us trying to encroach their values, their secular values and so forth. I don't think there's a straightforward answer. In the Far East, whether people are Muslim or not Muslim, they don't feel threatened by it. They take advantage of the goodness it brings, so that people will buy halal as a quality mark, because they know it's not genetically modified, it's clean, it's gone through a level of auditing which is about making it wholesome and a nutritious food. Whereas in other countries, it's a mixed response where people may feel threatened or fearful about it. And I don't think there's a black and white answer about it, that, you know, you could say, oh, well, we should do halal. I mean, my personal opinion is that if something is associated with negativity, I would rather, even though people may not accept it, I would rather use it as an educational tool and use it as a way to build bridges, even though initially people may not necessarily like it.
Can I? This is brilliant. I mean, we've touched on a theme, or started to touch on a theme of the commonality of, let's call it the Abrahamic traditions.
Yeah.
The three Abrahamic. So halal, we have. I'm not sure whether we lost the thread in the Christian faith on similar principles, but certainly we have the kosher, you know, kosher in the Jewish, in our Jewish communities. What's interesting, in having taught corporate ethics, or so-called corporate social responsibility, my students, we would go through this exercise of examining the virtues, the different and the common virtues across all faiths and traditions. And what's interesting is the commonality. Like in Buddhism, you would have this notion of right, like right livelihood, as if righteous to live according to what is deemed right. They could be natural laws, etc. So I'm curious that the natural question arises, is this pandemic that we're living through a kind of opportunity to reestablish the commonality of our faith traditions, our virtue, the core? Thomas Jefferson once said, without virtue, happiness cannot be.
Yes.
What does that mean? Without virtue to live according to some notion of, of right. I love our pets. They remind us, love me more. So, but the natural question is, one could look at the world before COVID and say we were kind of in this dystopic reality.
Yes.
Our food is soaked with Roundup, glyphosates. We eat poisonous foods. The virus is really an expulsion of the toxins that are sitting resident in our body because our body doesn't know what to do with them, perhaps. We have leaky guts. We have compromised immune systems because of the food we ingested that was not good for us. It was not created with love and all the things that you're talking about. And so can we imagine restoring our economy based on halal, based on these kind of fundamental truths, and which is really antithetical to the system that existed just a few months ago?
Absolutely.
What do you think is possible going forward, let's say next 6-12 months? Will we return back to what we had, or can we actually move in a different direction?
I think you've brought up some very important points, and I think very meaningful points. When I get past the cat,
maybe the cat has something to say.
I actually think it's trying to tell us about halal that we're just not understanding.
Exactly.
And actually,
halal cat food. Are we feeding your cats halal cat food?
Malaysia has halal cat food, and I laughed and laughed and laughed. But
I laughed at Indonesia having halal water. I thought, oh my God, I have to live to this day and see this halal water. I don't know whatever that means.
I had seen last year halal nappies. And I laughed, and I'm still laughing a year down the line. But then when I picked up the leaflet about it, it said, if halal is about living the right way and doing things that are not harmful, we're using materials in these nappies that are not harmful.
Absolutely.
It's environmentally friendly. And they challenged my own stereotypes, because I always laugh about people just seeing it as a food thing. And actually, when they explained it, they explained that it's not just about what you put in your body, it's what you've got, even down to the skincare you're using, the shampoos. Is it harmful? Is it not harmful? And I think it brings back to the point that you were asking just earlier on about, is it an opportunity for introducing halal or the nutritious or the right way of living again? I think as human beings, we have a phenomenal opportunity to bring about positive change. And I think for that, it requires to see this not wholly harmfully, but as a reset button. That this COVID-19 has basically reset living for the economy and for living for a system that hasn't stopped for hundreds of years. And we as humans would never consider that we could shut large shopping malls down, train stations down for weeks on end, and that it would be acceptable, and it's happened. And when you look at how the disruption has been to the status quo as we knew it from a few weeks ago, even, it has been substantial. But that stop button means you can restart. So you can be it can change from the situation of being a caterpillar and a chrysalis to actually being a butterfly. But if you never ever can plan for being a butterfly, you'll just sat there even as a butterfly and be sat there thinking that you're in a cocoon when you're not, and you've got the wings to fly. It is up to us to take these opportunities to reset our eating habits, to reset our living habits, to be able to give love and time to our loved ones and say, you know what, we can cope, because people coped hundreds of years before on the same type of principles of having time with our family, eating. We've probably got it better now than those people had it hundreds of years ago.
Absolutely.
But the difference is we're enslaved in our heads to a system of doing things in a certain way, and that's how it's been for in our lifetime. But that doesn't mean we can't reset that button inside us, just like it's been set out in the world, that we can't reset that button and actually look at how we live our lives so it is more nourishing. So we're not spending every God-sent hour to work and to have ready meals on the table, but actually to be able to do things that we wouldn't normally.
Yes. Can I, you know, you've also raised, we started, I think our first program was with the story of real management principles, which Mr. Abadi from BCCI, one of the biggest banks in the world that no longer exists, one of your Pakistani nationals. And the interesting thing is, as a raised Catholic, as a Christian, I totally respect that you pray 5 times a day. And I think there's a interesting, in real management, the first principle was basically acknowledgement that everything, all wealth comes from God, let's say, I'll paraphrase. So that acknowledgement that everything comes from the Creator, and my Indigenous friends teach us that. And is this kind of a wake-up call to be united in that humility, that saying just thank you, just 5 times a day, every moment, just saying thank you for the abundance. That becomes our core principle. That is the core ethical principle. It's a practice. It's simply a simple acknowledgement. I could say I love you to my children, but to acknowledge that all of this is because God created this whole thing with love.
Absolutely.
Even your cat acknowledges that. So
Mark, the fundamental principle of Islamic finance is also coming from the maqasid de Sharia, which means actually the well-being of not society, everything is included, like the humanity. So it's not just about the economy or making money or wealth. It's about everything you do, which is
yes. Actually, it's also about investing in the right things rather than making money on everything. So it's encouraged that you invest in those things that will bring benefit to the world and to people. So rather than actually making money on everything and anything, we wouldn't be encouraged to say invest in those things that are in the arms industry or in harmful drugs or those things that will hurt others in the long run. But anything that's constructive, clean energy, health benefits, anything like that, we'd be encouraged to invest in that. And we're actually encouraged to profit optimize rather than profit maximize. Now, profit optimization is about it runs on the principles of nature. So if you look at how much, for example, if we bought a pen, and we bought that pen which was produced cheaply in some part of the world, and let's just say we paid 15 pence for that pen, say 20 cents. And so it's a cheap enough pen that you can just write with. Now, we bought that, but what we didn't look at is the fact that the ink is from a harmful environmental source. It's made from plastic. It goes this, and it's got all these things. So it means that there's a business in Canada or in the UK which can't operate because they can't compete with the pen makers of that poor country. So the social and the environmental cost of that pen might be £1.50. So although the pen is cheap, the cost of what we're doing is far greater because we're not paying for that environmental cost. The future generations, the animal, the plants, the wildlife are paying for it. We're not seeing it. So then you've got an alternative. You've got someone who's used natural resources and they've used local businesses and so forth. So it's not, there's a shop on the high street. Sorry.
Your cat hit the mute button.
So that pen might cost, say, 45 pence, but there's no environmental or social cost to it. So actually, you're still over a pound better off than the other. And the example I use is that in nature, if we had 100% oxygen in the air, or we had 100% sulfur dioxide, which is the maximization sort of idea.
Yes.
We would actually kill ourselves, and civilization as we know it would not exist. So what nature does is it optimizes. So you've got a certain amount of sulfur dioxide, a certain amount of oxygen, you've got a certain amount of carbon dioxide, and through that optimal balance is what gives us life and it allows us to continue. In the same way, whatever we do needs to have that optimization so that we make money, but it's not to harm people who are working for us, so that they're so depressed that they have to go and to the healthcare system to get help and antidepressants. It's not that you withhold payment from people, so someone's having to become homeless because of it, or that you're using toxins which are poisoning the wildlife, which in a later stage will cost the future generations more to rectify that problem. So it's about doing the right thing, as well as being involved in an economy which is supposed to be altruistic, it's supposed to be kind, it's supposed to be giving people opportunities, and compassionate in every level, and the source of it, compassion, to give people allowances and so forth. And then that prayer 5 times a day, like you rightly said, is about those prayers that 5 times a day. People have said to me, tomorrow's a new day, it's a new dawn. But I said, as a Muslim, every 2 hours I have a new renewed sense of hope in my prayer. I go and I am grateful, I am thankful, and I ask for the things that matter for me. Because as a Muslim, you're supposed to glorify the Creator that gave us all the wonderful things. You're supposed to be thankful for it and all the things you have, which makes you think about what to be thankful for. And then the second thing is you ask for what matters to you. Now, subconsciously, if 5 times a day, before the world is awake, you are thinking of what matters to you, the health of your family and your loved ones, your friends, peace on earth, and to be able to do your job well, to do this, to be able to not hurt anybody. Now, that's 5 times a day is a good time to remember, to get out of your routine, wherever it is, reflect on what matters, and then to be able to go back. And then you've got a mental checklist on all the things that you should never forget.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
I want to cry now.
So I just want to go back to your having taught, I love the word you're the first person I think that has that I've heard say optimization in the same way that I'm ready, my schooling is in forestry, so I say that nature is the operating model for us to mimic. It is absolutely always moving towards a homeostatic condition or optimization, and yet our economy is more like the cancer cell. It just grows and grows and grows. It has no end of greed and wealth accumulation and toxicity, really. So here we have this important juncture we're at, where we could choose an optimization path, mimic nature, which might mean living more locally, living more sustainably off the local land and its biocapacity. Or we could continue to the trade model, which is moving stuff around the planet, a lot of it very inefficient, without full cost accounting, as you rightly point out. If we costed a barrel of oil from Alberta, it should be, we wouldn't be producing any oil because all the externalities have fully priced, for example. And we have the second largest oil supply in the world. And now we're suffering, we're crying when it's $20 a barrel. But if it was properly priced, we would rethink our whole energy economy. We might look, not that we would isolate our nations from each other, but we would rethink the entire trade model, which I think, if mimicked on nature, would be optimization, as you said. And so I think that's really important. And your reflection on when we're conscious of in the prayer cycle, right? And as Christians, as Catholics, St. Paul said, life is about praying constantly. It's like, so the conscious mind is always then aware of that every moment every moment is pregnant with love. Like all of creation is love.
And
And
then
when
we
you're
have
aware,
mindfulness
then you have
training.
mindfulness. But this is
People
like,
get trained for mindfulness, and I ask myself, what exactly is that mindfulness?
yeah,
It's about presence, right?
Yes.
it's
That
about
you are.
presence.
Mm,
So I love that, because in a way, our prayer, our awareness of what we long for or what we desire for others is is a thought of compassion, which
Yes.
actually becomes manifest, because then we go back in our world, in our busy life, and we manifest the prayer in a sense through action, because love is action.
Yes.
So I love what you've just said. I think it's this whole optimization idea is something we can literally play out right now in our spreadsheets, in our economic models, and say, what would England look like if it was based on optimization? Whether Brexit or no Brexit, it doesn't really matter. It's an optimization challenge.
Yep. I mean, I think first of all, people would start being valued as people rather than economic contributors straight away. So the carers, the healthcare workers, the people who are sweeping the roads, who are looking after animals, those in financial unpaid jobs would be recognized as equals as those that are in the flash cars earning the big money on in London.
Yes.
Now you're speaking my language. I love that you're saying this.
Yes.
But tell me, you're into education as well. Do you think somehow how do we instill these values now? I know these values are universal. They are in every religion. They have been there for ages, forever. But then, we forget. We somehow become these creatures, these monsters. So, I think education has to come in here, as in for the younger generation, we are not setting a good example ourselves. So how do we then bring this into their consciousness as well, that this is the
First of all, I think from what you're saying, I'm going to probably say something that's quite controversial. I think the education system is skewed and not fit for purpose anymore. The education system became a tool of exclusion for so many people because it started serving the needs of industry more. And if you look day by day at many of the courses that are funded even through the governments, various governments are linked to people doing certain types of jobs.
Yes.
But so the funding in various areas disappeared for those that are linked to arts or care or health, etc. And I think the other thing about the education system is that whilst it became so target driven that it was pushing people literally to be different but the same, what we lost is some of the magical spirit that surrounds us and makes life beautiful for what it is. So in effect, the education system on its own is not able to fulfill what we're talking about here. There's a much greater need, and the education system is a silo. We need a holistic solution. So almost like how the halal economy is an ecosystem, we also need an ecosystem for human development. And that which takes into account not just academia or learning in a classroom or online, but it's actually about learning about people, about values, about learning about the things that bind us together and also separate us, but with respect and dignity for one another. You do not have to like the same things, but still love each other. And this is the thing, and I think there's something fundamentally sad in what you look at. For example, so many of the Western cultures are so compassionate and beautiful in nature, the way it looks after animals and people, and but at the same time there's an aversion with so many people against religion. And so therefore what they do is throw the baby out with the bathwater. So they don't like religion, so they don't like religious people, and it creates a conflict. Rather than actually saying, do you know something, I don't have to be somebody else's religion, I don't have to be secular, but it doesn't mean I have to be disrespectful and nasty to the other person about it. I can love my own identity and my values, and I can respect the other person for their rights of their identity and their values. And I think you hear people talking about it, But the true implementation comes when you're sat on a table and you can be somebody who's sat in the middle and somebody who's the far left and somebody who's the far right, and you can still care for each other as fellow beings and fellow human beings, and that we're in this together, and that's each of our respective rights to be wherever we choose to sit, whether that's politically, whether that's religiously, or so forth.
This is music
So,
to my ears, and you know that we've spoken about this as well when I met you for the first time. And the work I'm doing, you know, the communiversity concept is this, that we come together as learning communities. So we are actually learning from each other. And how do our communities then grow? That you rightly said that we need holistic education. We need to learn from each other firstly, right? And
Yes,
we have enough strength in amongst our own community, as in, you know, the group sort of which is coming together. There are other groups as well. So I think this is something for us way forward as well, that how do we then come up with a charter, as Mark and I have been saying, Mark more so, that holistic charter of everything, which is just about not just starting with money or money creation, economy, and other things included. So it has to be that thing, I think, going forward. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Mark?
It was great. I just, Saeeda, I wanted to, mostly for our listening audience, and I was involved in the future of education system for Alberta. It was like 30-year vision, you know, and I am and you can know, I'm a smart aleck, and I love the origins of words. And I said to the Minister of Education, where does the word education even come from? And they look at me and they're like, we don't know. And I said, well, let me open my etymological dictionary on my phone. And, oh, wait a minute, it's from the Latin educare, which means to draw forth what's already within you.
Right.
What? So my Cree Nation friends, our next guest will be Maureen Brown, who's a woman from the Cree people from North America, said every child, in their understanding of the universe, every child born is an answer to a prayer.
Yes.
Wow. So each of us is brought in, you know, come into this world with a certain gift, gifts, capacities, longings, dreams. And yet the education system that we have in North America and Britain and most countries comes out of the Industrial Revolution, the Victorian age, in which you're absolutely correct, was meant to stratify, right? The working class from the elites, using examinations to stratify, to test, to put us literally under a spell kind of thing.
And
spelling.
kills the soul as well.
And kills the soul, kills the longing in our hearts when we're 7 or 8, where we come awake and we're like, whoa, wait a minute, why am I here? And we never do a vision quest. We never go and sit for 4 days like Indigenous youth would do and listen to God, the Creator. Because your aunties and uncles were praying for you, saying, you're going to get the download, Anika. Are you ready for it? Because when you get it, you know this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And yet we've gone through this education system, post-secondary. We have a PhD. We think we're really smart. We know nothing. And it's unbelievable that we've lost the basic thread of the word education.
It's so funny that we spend half of our life learning and then half of it unlearning that learning because it's useless to us.
I mean, just to tell you, one of the common areas for all of us are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, where we sign up to zero poverty, zero hunger, we sign up to equality, we sign up to a number of different things about climate change, about looking after one another. So that's one common area that we can look at, but it doesn't focus on the individual. And I'm involved with a foundation called UNGSI, which looks at implementing those values at scale all over the world. So looking at creating, for example, sustainable cities, looking at transforming healthcare systems so that they're not about sickness, but they're about wellness. And you know, with working with education bodies that are truly interested in holistic development. But I mean, I'm talking about 20 years of knowledge. I'll probably do your head in going on and on about all these different things.
My only plea
Okay.
to the UN, I'm involved with the SDGs as well, the Sustainable Development Goals. My only complaint is not one mention of money or money systems in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I said, wow, you've left out one of the most important issues. And this is what we've talked about in previous discussions, but it's one of the things that we have to figure out as well, and we can't ignore.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your time.
That was
My
fantastic.
pleasure. Thank you.